Hello, welcome. You're listening to Season 3 of Narcolepsy Navigators, brought to you by Naps for Life CIC. Narcolepsy Navigators is a podcast for raising awareness of these fascinating illnesses through a deep dive into the lives and individuals living with narcolepsy, idiopathic hypersomnia, and Klein-Levin syndrome. I'm Kerly, the founder of Naps for Life CIC, and welcome to our stories. Hi everyone, welcome to Narcolepsy Navigators. I am Kerly, your host. I have narcolepsy type 1, and today I'm here with lovely Lisa Isaac, who is in New Zealand, and welcome to her story. Hi Lisa, how are you doing?
I'm good, Kerly, thank you. Yeah, all good. Just got up for the start of the day on a Sunday morning, and it's raining, so yeah, but I'm all good, thank you.
We had some sun today, 20 degrees in England.
Oh, wow.
It's starting to change a bit, but the days before weren't like that. And then last week they said it was 20 degrees and it wasn't 20. It was windy and it was more like 14 degrees. And some people went out thinking it was 20. So,
yeah.
So Lisa, can you tell the audience, they know your name now, but
yeah.
where you're from, how old you are, if you want to disclose that, and also where you're residing?
I'm originally from Torquay in South Devon, and my age is 55, and emigrated to New Zealand in 2006. So yeah, been living here ever since. So love the way of life out here.
Yeah, I visited in 2020 for a friend's wedding. It's so lovely. It's a lovely island. Yeah, people are very friendly. And I got to go to North Island and South. So the wedding was in Dunedin, but I travelled the whole of North Island. Yeah, I travelled the whole of North Island before I went to Dunedin.
It is beautiful. We lived in Dunedin for a couple of years, and we're currently in the North Island living, but definitely miss the South. Yeah, it's quite different. Both islands are quite different from each other, I find. But yeah, no, it's good. It's good out here. Life's good.
So which part were you living in when you were in North Island?
Oh, cracky. We've moved around a little bit. So currently in Masterton, which is about an hour and a half drive from Wellington. From anybody that sort of has done the journey or knows the area, you have to go through Wellington and then through a set of hills called the Rimataka Hills. Probably should be on one of the worst journeys in the world type thing. Crazy drivers, New Zealanders, they really are. And then it brings you into Wairarapa country, which is Featherston, Carterton, Greytown and Masterton. So we live right at the north end at the other side of Masterton on a smallish lifestyle sort of plot, a little bit of land, but out in the country a bit more. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I love it.
I have some friends in Wellington. I went to Wellington. It's very windy down there.
Oh, yeah, it is the windy city. Yeah, it can get really bad sometimes, and flown in a couple of times where the plane's been go from side to side when it's landed. Yeah.
I went to Auckland and Hamilton, and I got sick in Rotorua.
Yeah, it can be quite overpowering sometimes there. I couldn't live there, definitely not. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it. I guess your body just gets acclimatized to it, but it was really giving me headaches when I was there.
It is rather smelly in Rotorua, but yeah, it's a very diverse country. The countryside, you can travel for a couple of hours, and if we went north for a couple of hours, we'd be going through the desert road and seeing a volcano, and then you've got the hot springs, and it's quite beautiful.
It reminded me of Wales and the Caribbean sort of squashed together, which was quite interesting because it's just like 1 minute you see sheep and then the next minute you can see a beach, and it's you don't really associate those things together.
It's strange, really. And then when you're in the South Island, we lived in Central Otago in Cromwell for about 10 years, and that to me in some respects was like living in the Mediterranean a little bit. It was very like wine growing country and olive trees everywhere.
Cornwall was nice as well.
Yeah, the town with the big fruit.
So Lisa, when were you?
Officially it was about 2008.
So after you moved to New Zealand?
Yes, I'd always felt tired all throughout my life. As perhaps not as a small child, but as a teenager, definitely. And my dad, who was quite old fashioned, and he would say to me, "Oh, I swear you've been bitten by a tsetse fly because it causes
To be
sleeping
tired.
sickness." And I didn't really think anything of it, and went through my life just having little cat naps, spending all day, like perhaps on the weekend in bed. Lived as much of a normal life as I possibly could do. Felt that I was quite sporty as a teenager. I would apply myself to all sorts of things, but afterwards I just needed a little nap and I'd be good to go again, really. And then
Mm.
it wasn't until we came out here to New Zealand, and my husband's convinced it's because everything's the other way around. And I stopped working because I had quite a pressurized job before we left the UK. And I stopped working over here so that we could settle in properly, bring the kids up. I was there doing the normal mum thing. It was going to allow me a bit of time to do that. And it all started happening with a vengeance when we moved to the South Island, which was in 2008. The children were settled into school, and I found that I wanted to get a little part-time job, so I did end up bizarrely working at the School of Medicine in Dunedin and worked with all these professors. One was the head of the neurology
Wow.
department. And
What a coincidence.
oh yeah, and I used to take some like minutes for their meetings, and I can remember one meeting whereby I was sat next to a doctor and I was taking minutes, and 1 minute he nudged me and he said, "Lisa, did you have a late night last night? Or did you have too much to drink or something?" And I went, "Oh," came around my minutes that I'd written. Oh my God. I'd obviously gone into like automatic behaviour.
Yeah.
I'd written like squiggles and squirrels all over this
Oh
piece of paper.
no.
Didn't know what the hell it was all about. And it started to progress quite quickly from there, where I was doing things like going for lunch, getting a bit of fresh air, and I'd actually end up falling asleep walking along the road. I did that day on the pavement, which was quite scary. And then I hit my head on a cupboard kitchen door when we were renting this property, and my son's convinced that my cataplexy started from there, because every time I started laughing my knees would buckle. And my husband was saying to me, "You're not laughing like you used to," because I would really enjoy having such a good, hearty, belly
No.
rolling sort of thing. And again, very quickly, it progressed from that to me losing control of my legs. I'd end up on the floor. And then I would sit, say, like of an evening in the chair, and my face would start to twitch. I kept thinking, oh gosh, perhaps I've got like a brain tumor or something. We moved from Dunedin to Cromwell, and within the first week of us being there, my sister came over from the UK and saw all this happening. And of course, she was like, "Oh, that's not right. There's something drastically wrong. We need to get you to the doctors." Long story cut very short, I went and saw a doctor. She then referred me back to the neurology department from where I used to work,
That's
and
funny.
had like the normal sort of tests, ECG, and I did have a MRI, and they diagnosed me with epilepsy
Oh.
and put me onto epilepsy medication. I was mortified. I kept thinking, "Oh my God!" Within the space of about 6 months, I would say the knee buckling went to full paralysation. When with the cataplexy, when I laughed, I was on the floor, not being able to move, sometimes for say a few seconds to a couple of minutes, depending on how funny something was or how anxious I was feeling. Sometimes it would happen if I just thought of something funny in my head.
Imagine, yeah.
And I would just go down like a pancake. And also certain people would set me off. I still get my head around that, really.
Yeah, there are people triggers.
Oh,
So
and
you have emotional
emotional
triggers,
connection.
and you also have people triggers.
Right.
Sometimes the trigger of the person is because of an emotion that they give you.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
one of my sisters, my younger sister, she's my trigger because she's always telling jokes. So that's her thing. But some other people, it might be something like their husband. I have a friend who used to get it if her husband was coming home and she hadn't tidied up the house.
All
Then
right.
she would get anxious, and then as soon as he'd come in the door, she'd have it.
Oh gosh. Oh my
Right.
dear. Oh, that's terrible. Yeah. Oh, so that does make sense to me now. I've got a couple of friends who still obviously do that. So I kept thinking, I'm taking this epilepsy medication and it made me like a zombie. Honestly, I was just totally out of it. It was as much as I could do to get myself up, get the kids to school. And by the time I got home, I would just sleep the whole day. And I swear that I think my husband, bless him, he really thought I was being lazy half the time because he'd come home and he'd be like, "What have you done all day?
Yeah.
Oh my God, where's the day gone?" Anyway, so I knew I didn't have epilepsy. And I kept going back to the doctor and saying, "Look, when I'm having these fits or seizures or whatever they are, I'm fully conscious. I can hear everything that's going on around me. It's not that I'm not remembering what's happening." They didn't, no, you've been diagnosed with epilepsy. You've got to keep on top of the medication. Excuse me. I thought, oh, nobody's listening. Why is nobody listening to me? I'm going to do my own research. And I literally Googled, I fall down when I laugh. And lo and behold, then the Narcolepsy Foundation in the UK, I started reading stuff, and every single point that it was labeling with things that were connected with narcolepsy, I kept thinking, oh my God, that's me, everything. And it was a revelation. And went back and I made an appointment, and it was when you could get into the doctors the next day. I said, "Look, I think I've got a condition called narcolepsy and another thing that's factored with it called cataplexy." The doctor wouldn't even entertain it, and I just thought, ridiculous. In the end, luckily enough for me, a new medical practice opened up. So I changed the medical practice and finally saw a doctor who just would listen to me. She arranged for me to go and see a sleep specialist in Christchurch. And within probably, I would say 2 months later, after seeing him, my husband said that I must have had a cataplexy attack in the waiting room, but I actually can't remember that. Anyway, within half an hour of him taking my medical history, what sort of symptoms I've been having, he more or less said, "Oh, I'm 99." Sent me to go and get a blood test. And I always forget what the little marker is on the blood. That is it HLNA something 0114 or whatever. And he said it's not 100% positive, but people with type 1 narcolepsy normally tend to have this sort of receptor in their blood. And yeah, lo and behold, I did. Of course, then he prescribed dexamphetamine tablets for me, which I've been taking now since 2008. I did trial at one point modafinil. My cataplexy came back with a vengeance when I took that medication, because at the time the dexamphetamine tablets weren't funded when I first started taking them, so I ended up having to pay for them. However, now that's totally different. But yeah, I find that I can still drive. The doctors are okay with me doing that over here. I know what my limits are living with it. Since then, I know what my trigger points are as well. And it's not ideal having to take those tablets every single day. But now, in order that I don't sleep my life away, that's what I have to do. So, yeah, that's where I am really. But I'm also conscious that I try and keep up with any news that's happening. I have met 3 other ladies in New Zealand who,
Ah,
quite
cool.
bizarrely,
How did you
ended
meet
up.
them? By chance?
Wow, it was really weird, but there used to be a television program that came on, and it was like current events and that sort of thing. It was just with one of them, it was advert, and it said, how do you feel every time you laughed, you fell down on the floor? This happens to this lady. And I just went, oh my God, what the heck?
Oh my God, the advert.
I watched the programme, obviously, and it was a lady in Auckland who was basically telling her narcolepsy story. And it said then afterwards, if you have any questions or connections with anything we've aired on the programme, then contact our Facebook page. So I thought, oh my God, I'm going to do that. And I ended up contacting her, and we were, oh gosh, quite in close contact for, I would say, about 5 or 6 years. And I ended up meeting her when we lived in Central Otago. Yeah. And it was quite peculiar, though, because we both started laughing and then we were both like, oh.
I like that.
Yeah. And then more recently, my hairdresser, she said, oh, I know somebody who just lives in the next town across. She's just been recently diagnosed with type 1 narcolepsy. And like sometimes when people say, oh yeah, I've got narcolepsy, and you're like, oh
no, you don't.
I don't really know what you're talking about. And I was thinking it was one of those situations, but no, again, this lady does have type 1 narcolepsy with cataplexy, and it's a whole new process for her. And I just feel that it's been quite, in some respects, not nice, but I've been there for her as a little bit of support so that she can try and understand a little bit about what she's going through.
Definitely need help in those really early days. I remember back in the day where there was nothing for us. And if you were lucky, if you found something on Facebook, and usually everyone was in America and there were nowhere else, and no one in Britain would talk to you about it or whatever, and it was just so stigmatized. Yeah.
There's definitely nothing over here, although it is recognised as a disability. However, it's means tested. So therefore, if you too much money, there's no disability allowance or anything like that. And I've been seeing videos on all different social media platforms of people that have like support dogs and different aids and things like that. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, they're so lucky to be able to even have a council or a government or a department that actually understand about what their needs are. Because I know that, don't get me wrong, I don't feel like I'm disadvantaged. And like I said to you, I just want to live my life and experience my life without sleeping through it, if that makes sense. I've got my own business, which I'm quite proud of. I think possibly...
What is it, if you don't mind me asking?
I sell chalk paint, teach people how to use it, recycle bits of furniture.
Creative.
But I think that had it not been for my narcolepsy, I may not have gone down that road. So in some respects, it's ironic. It's led me there, because if I'm focused on something, I don't go to sleep. Yeah, it's quite crazy, really.
Lisa, I don't know if you knew the part of our brain that's affected because of the lack of sleep and everything makes us more creative.
Oh, is that right? Oh, that's interesting.
I'm yet to find someone with narcolepsy who doesn't have super creative abilities. That even if that's not their main job, it's like always been there in the background.
Yeah,
and then usually when they get sick, it just comes so to the front. Yeah.
Oh, that's peculiar, because I remember just feeling the need to get my teeth into something when I started, and it could have been anything from like paper cutting to I made cakes for people for a while, celebration cakes and things, just so that I could focus without that pressure of being sat on a computer where 1 minute I'm typing, next minute it's gobbledygook. That sort of thing. And don't get me wrong, some days are more difficult than others. I'm finding as I'm getting older that my memory's been affected. Not a huge point where I'm forgetting names of things or anything like that, but sometimes somebody will say something to me. Mind you, I think my kids in the are probably quite good at like saying, oh yes mum, you did say that, and I'm like, did I say that?
I think you remember saying it now, because you can't remember.
that sort of thing.
I get that with my sister all the time, and she will say to me, and I'll be like, "No, you never told me that." And she'll say, "Yeah, I
No,
did." No, you didn't.
no.
Then she says to me, which two of us have a memory problem?
True.
The narcolepsy against me right now. I'm telling you, you never told me this story. I've never heard it before, ever."
Yeah. And certain things like that. So it's quite funny from that respect. And we do have a laugh about it sometimes.
How did your children take your diagnosis and your husband?
Initially, my kids coped better with it than what my husband did. I still think now sometimes, after all these years, my husband Nigel, he can't get his head around how 1 minute I can feel okay, and then that overwhelming tiredness. Because he's always said to me, if you're feeling tired, go to bed. But no, it's not like that. He still can't understand how that can happen. He obviously knows. And they are very supportive, but I think also because it has been for such a long time now, it's just part of the norm. It doesn't affect so much. Before the diagnosis, yeah, I do think he thought that I was just couldn't be bothered to do anything around the house or the breakfast dishes, and it probably was a bit of a worry for him. We would go out in the car, and where we lived, we had this long driveway, but it was shared, and he'd be driving, I'd be in the passenger seat, and we would literally get to the end of the driveway, I'd be missing out on all this beautiful sort of scenery and whatever because I'd just be asleep. I would take the kids to the cinema.
That's a nice nap right there.
And then there's been times in the past when my nighttime sleep is atrocious. I do get paralyzations and I'll get really like lucid dreams. And it's always the same. People breaking into the house. I'm attacked. And I'm trying to get myself out of the nightmare and and go, oh, because I can't speak or whatever. But then there's also times when I've believed that Nigel's the person that's attacking me. Oh, it sounds terrible, doesn't it? And then I've attacked him in my sleep, like all the leg kicking or whatever. And so he's had to put up with a lot, really. But
God bless him.
but he's still here.
Yeah, that's
must
what
love
counts.
him.
He loves you.
Yeah, it's just my way of life now. Initially, when I was first experiencing all of this, I was taking myself out of social situations because I didn't want to be having a cataplexy attack in the middle of a party or something like that, for instance. Whereas in the past, I've always been a bit of a social butterfly. It did affect me that way. But now I've just got to that point where as long as I've got somebody with me, and 9 times out of 10, it's either my husband or my daughter. She's very good. She'll just be like, oh, yeah, no, leave mum alone. She'll be fine in a minute. And then when my muscles are then back into 100% and I can get back up or whatever, they're like, oh, my God, are you okay? Oh, yeah. No, I'm not having a fit, honestly. It's just difficult, isn't it? Luckily enough, I've not been in a situation where anybody's called an ambulance or anything like that. It's okay. 9 times out of 10, my tablets control my narcolepsy. I know that I could go onto antidepressants for that full 100% control of the cataplexy, but I don't really want to go down that road. Let's hope somebody somewhere out there one day can come up with a cure for it.
And also, because you're getting older, you don't want to probably put more medications into your body that could cause other side effects as well. Because it's not really 100% guaranteed that it will control the cataplexy. I've been on antidepressants for the cataplexy for years. And yes, it controls it a lot, as in I'm not falling to the floor all the time because I'm on it. If I came off it, I'd be falling to the floor all the time. But it never got rid of it. Or like some people have said they take their meds, they never have any cataplexy. That's never been my story. Not since I've been 15 years old till now. Yeah. But it's definitely improved like a lot.
I must admit, it has put me in a situation whereby just with all that autoimmune thing going on in my body, there's been so many times when I've questioned, where did it stem from? Where
did it start?
What actually happened? I did have a flu jab probably about 12 years ago, and I woke up a couple of days afterwards and my husband said to me, I think you've had a stroke, Liz. Let's get you to the doctor. or my face had just dropped on one side and I couldn't speak.
Wow.
Anyway, long story cut short, I had got Bell's palsy, another autoimmune
Mm.
disease, and the doctor that I saw at the time told me it was related back to the flu immunization that I'd had.
Oh.
I then, obviously, I'm aware that there was the pandemics vaccination, which was given to so many people in the UK
Yeah.
because of, was it swine flu?
Yeah.
And the consequences of not enough research done about it. I'm aware about all of that. So then when the COVID vaccine came out over here, I made the decision not to get it done because I just thought, I don't know what it's going to do to me. My specialist was just basically, the advice that we're giving out is that you should get it done, together with my doctor's advice was the same. But I just felt that I couldn't go through with it because what sort of related issues that could possibly have then afterwards,
Yeah. What would it release?
just with
Yeah.
my system being as it is. My husband and my two children, they're adults now, they had it done. I've got nothing against them having it done, but we all caught COVID at the same time. My symptoms were not any different from
Ah.
theirs, which I thought was quite interesting. I just will not prescribe now to having any more immunisations done for anything because it just scares me to death, really, about, oh my God, what's it going to do to me? No.
Yeah. If you have autoimmune disease, they put you on the special people to have it done early.
Oh,
They
yeah.
called me in to have it done early, and then they said, "Have you ever had any reactions to any injection ever in your life?" And there was a year I was visiting Kenya, and I had to take yellow fever, and I had a massive swelling the day before we flew to go to the hospital. So I mentioned that to them, and they said, "Okay, you definitely can't have Pfizer. Then you'll have AstraZeneca instead." So I thought, okay. She gave me AstraZeneca. Sat down 15 minutes, as they said, or whatever. I was feeling a bit drowsy or whatever. The lady gave me some water. Went home to mum. Still wasn't like feeling 100%. By the next day, like within under 24 hours, my throat closed up.
No.
Yeah, I had to go to get taken to hospital by ambulance. And I was staying out of the hospital. I was trying my best to not to get into the hospital because so many people were dying.
Yeah.
I was in the waiting room and a girl just looked at me and she said, "Oh my God, you've got reaction to COVID jab." She goes, "You look like my sister." But she had a rash on top of
Oh
the
my goodness.
swelling that you have.
Yeah. See,
They gave
I
me
mean,
steroids and everything. And then when the second jab came round, no one would give it to me. They kept ringing me and saying, "Come for the jab." And whenever I'd go to the place and tell them what happened the first time, they're like, "No, you need to have it done at a hospital. You can't have it done at clinics and whatever." So in the end, I never got that jab. And after that, I got allergy. My period stopped for a long time.
yeah.
Yeah, and I got peanut allergy and apple allergy after this whole thing.
I was made to feel a bit like a leper for not getting it done. And I mean, we went into full lockdown here in New Zealand, I think, before the UK did.
Yeah, I know. I was
It was
there in
like,
the peace of New
oh,
Zealand. I arrived 5th of February and I stayed the whole month because I went there for the wedding and my birthday and everything.
oh,
And when I got back to England, oh, the drama. I was stayed in New Zealand where I was safe. It was like they didn't lock this place down till God knows when I got back.
no,
I was fighting
yeah.
over toilet paper and sanitizers and stuff. And I was like, what is going on? Because at the time when I left for New Zealand, they were saying they weren't even calling it COVID. They were just saying there's an outbreak in China. That's all they were saying at the time. But the airlines told us, because I was supposed to fly through China, you need to change your ticket because
Oh,
people are getting
gosh.
stuck in China. They're not saying this in
Oh,
the news, but we're telling our people, change your ticket. We changed the ticket. 2 weeks later, I flew. And on the couple of days before I flew, New Zealand locked out anybody coming into China. So if I had not changed my ticket, I would have been stuck in China.
oh my goodness. Yeah, because they wouldn't have let you in.
Yeah.
No, that's one thing that's extreme.
Yeah, they were so strict, and that's why I enjoyed my holiday so much. I felt so safe. I didn't even know anything was happening. It wasn't until
Oh,
the end of the holiday that we started hearing on the news, oh, there's 6 outbreaks in another country that's not China, and another country has it, another country has it. But still, there was nothing saying that anyone in England had it yet. It was
no.
only 3 or 4 countries had now had 2 cases or 2 cases or 2 cases.
Yeah, crazy, really, looking back on it. I remember one day after lockdown had finished and whatever, and we were going to go to a home show exhibition. And I know I'm digressing a bit because it's not really, but it did concern me. And I wasn't allowed in because I hadn't been
Wow.
vaccinated.
Uh,
I didn't have my vaccine pass on my phone, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, but I just made that decision and I thought, no, I've made it. I'm going to stick with it. I don't know what it could possibly do to my body again, and I'm not prepared to put myself through Bell's palsy, definitely, because it was horrible. It was horrible. Yeah, and just with that whole autoimmunity, just not knowing what effect it could possibly
And a
have.
lot of people got sick from the injections. It triggered things in people's bodies that people didn't
Oh
even know
yeah,
was
yeah,
there.
and it's still happening now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for once in my life, I think I feel very glad about the decision that I stood by, my possible health benefits. But I know that whether it's the narcolepsy affecting also my eyesight, but I do have like quite high pressure behind my eyes. I go to the opticians regularly to make sure that glaucoma hasn't set in or anything like that. But
Mm,
again, does it go hand in hand with the whole sort of degenerative disease that it
yeah.
is? All sorts of, or is it just the fact that I'm getting older and that sort of thing? But I also feel out here that I've just disappeared under the radar a little bit, if that makes sense. There's not enough people with the disease to have a help group or anything.
Or like a conference or anything,
Uh,
nothing like that.
yeah, there's quite a lot that happens in Australia, but then obviously you've got to be able to afford to
Yeah, to fly
go
out then. Yeah.
go over there for a conference or whatever. But yeah, it's just peculiar, eh? I just look back at my dad, bless him, saying to me, you've been bitten by a tsetse fly, Lisa. And now I think, oh my God, was it a childhood disease that did this to me? Was it an immunization that I had as
Mhm.
a child? Who knows? We'll never know.
That's usually the 3 things they say. Either it's genetic, it runs in your family, you had some type of virus or something that triggered it off, or some type of immunization. Oh, and there's a 4th one, severe head injury.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I haven't had a head injury apart from hitting my head on the kitchen cupboard. But yeah, I just think you've got to thank your lucky stars, haven't you, really? And try and be positive about it. And for me, that positivity has manifested in me being creative and now having my own business, and hopefully it's going from strength to strength.
Can you share, like, your website so people can know where to find you?
Yes, yeah, I can do that. Just getting it out there, and if it makes you feel good about painting something or upcycling something, the love of doing it,
Mm.
and that's all that counts at the end of the day, isn't it, really? But yeah, it stops me from falling asleep, so
So that's handy, yeah.
yeah. And I just got to make hay whilst the sun shines, really, because I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to carry on doing it,
Mm.
really. But whilst I can, I will. So yeah, that's me.
That's really good. So is there anything about narcolepsy that you'd like people to know?
I tell you what does make me laugh is when people say to you, "Oh God, I feel exhausted. I feel so tired," and I think you've got no idea. You've
What
got really
time?
no idea about. Yeah, you might just feel a little bit tired, but oh my gosh, no. I don't know. It must be like the equivalent of maybe running a marathon every day and then having to get back up the next day and doing the same thing all over again.
It's a function.
Because I think it's just so important to try and keep in a positive mindset. It could be quite easy to go down that whole road of woe is me. But I think the trigger point for me has been, do I want to spend the rest of my life asleep? Don't get me wrong, there's nothing more than I crave sometimes. And I think, oh, I just have a little cat nap now because,
Yeah.
I need And I so invigorated. It could be like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or even a couple of hours. But yeah, you just got to keep on plodding through life because we're not here for very long, are we? So you've got to
Yeah,
make the most of it. And if that means for me, keeping up with my medication, and you just never know what's around the corner. Life's too precious to just sleep it away at the end of the day,
yeah,
really. So that's my take on it. And I think as long as I keep telling myself that, then that's what gets me through. Having a good support network. My family, there's only the four of us out here. However, being able to speak to people about it helps. I know that sometimes during a cataplexy attack, people just can think, oh, she's gone to sleep. And it's not. And I'm like, no, I'm not asleep. But,
sleep. I'm very much here. I can
you
hear you.
know, it's the whole education sort of thing. But then there aren't so many people over here that have got in New Zealand that the population base isn't the same as what it is in the UK. Hopefully, there's probably more awareness now than there used to be. That lady that I was saying that was being recently diagnosed, only somebody with narcolepsy can know what they're going through,
Yes.
really, at the end of the day. And I just feel that I needed to be there for her. Yeah, support is a big one, really. If you've got a good support structure.
There's nothing like having a narcolepsy friend. I remember when things were really sparse in the UK, and I've met Lindsay Radcliffe. Shout out to Lindsay. And she was the only person in England that wanted to talk, and we spoke for 2 hours straight. And then she was like, "Oh my gosh, we're so tired now. We need to take a nap." And everything that she said, I was just like, it's like she was reading my mind. And I was like,
Yeah,
who is
yeah.
this woman? This is crazy. And then she invited me to her wedding. And
Oh,
yeah, and I went up to Manchester and I went to her wedding. And it
oh,
was like we call each other twins. Oh my gosh. It was like when I just watched her mannerisms, everything, I was like, oh my God, this is what I look like.
yeah. I think my motto is life is definitely too short. I'm not going to sleep the rest of my life away, and basically try and get out there and do as much as I possibly can before I can't
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
You know.
Wear that red dress, go on that,
Yeah,
yeah, go on that holiday,
absolutely.
do what you need to do. It
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
matter if you're gonna sleep half the time and the other half time you'll be awake. So you
exactly.
will
Yeah,
get some memories.
yeah. And go back and rewatch that film if you have to.
Yes, exactly. That's a beautiful thing also about narcolepsy. You can watch the same film maybe 4 times before you actually get the whole film, because
Absolutely.
especially if it's comedy or you'd have had some cataplexy during some of it. So next time you watch it, hopefully you have a cataplexy at a different part. And so you'll be like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that happened in the film.
I think I was into watching a Netflix series, and it took me a couple of months to to watch something that a normal person would have binged
It
like
did so quickly.
over
Yeah,
a weekend or whatever. Yeah, a couple of months it took me to watch it, but still got there in the
that's what counts.
absolutely. And just keep on laughing as well, because like now I haven't had my medication this morning because what are we? It's 8 o'clock here. And I can laugh and I'm okay. Depending on how tired I feel, can have a knock-on effect to the cataplexy then, if that sort of makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I try and have what I call maybe a good nighttime routine where I try and settle myself a bit more before I go to bed. Sometimes I'll have a bath. Just that whole sort of like wind down, nice sleeping environment. And I know that I'm only going to get a few hours sleep. So I try and make the most of that sleep that I
Mhm.
do try. But also I'm finding as I'm getting older that my sleep during the night is getting worse as well. The length of sleep, more or less. I think possibly as you do get older, you like anything tends to wake me up. That's quite annoying, really, when the rest of the house is like deathly quiet, and I try and then creep around if I wake up or
Mhm.
whatever. We've got dogs, and then the dogs will start barking or
Oh, no.
It's quite crazy though, because going through the teenage years, I can look back and remember, especially before having my children, which was like early 20s. I go out partying on a weekend and I'd spend a real good 24 hours in bed if I wanted to, and I would get brilliant sleep. And I look back on those days now and I think, oh my God, where's that gone? Because I definitely, possibly 3 or 4 hours at the most.
That's me, 4 hours max.
And you just say, oh, here we go again, type thing.
That's why it's always interesting. You meet people and they're like, oh my gosh, I only had 5 hours sleep last night. I only had 6 hours sleep. And you just look at them and you just think, oh, poor you. Poor you. And they're like, oh my gosh, they're like, I can't function. I've got bags under my eyes. Like, you're talking to the wrong person. Okay, no sympathy from me here. I'm living on 4 hours every day. So suck it up.
I think I probably feel thankful that at least I've got to that point where I have got a diagnosis. I know what I'm dealing with, and it's up to me how far I do any research or whatever, or keep up with what's happening. I still think, oh my gosh, I still can't believe that I've got what I've got. It's the morning times that are worse for me. I'll probably be up at about 5 o'clock and then I'm awake. So I'll do some stuff, but then I find that I want to go back to bed again because I do feel quite sleepy. But if I know I do have a big day ahead of me, I will try and have a bit more sleep if I can. At work, I've got a really good business partner actually. We've got a workshop area and I'll just flick the lights off and have a 10-minute nap just to get me through the rest of the day. I'm not saying that I do that every day, but I know that I can if I need to. I think you just got to try and find that sort of what works for you. I've seen TV programs where people are wearing like headgear and stuff. If that's what you've got to do, then so be it. I've never got to that point where I've been scared about a situation that I'm in with my cataplexy. I used to fight it when it first started happening, which is quite consuming. But then I think I must have just got to that point where I thought, no, I've just got to go with it. And I try and think about other things when it's happening so that it stops me from thinking funny things, if that makes sense, or like that emotional heightenedness. 9 times out of 10, it's when something hysterically funny happens for me, or as we were talking about, that trigger person. That's made a lot of sense to me now, so I thank you for letting me know about that. Perhaps I should come back to the UK because then it would be the other way round with the body clock, maybe. I don't know. So I would be able to sleep through the night time then. I know that there's so much research that's going on behind the scenes. It is difficult here in New Zealand when you don't have that many specialists that know about the disease, really. But I'm sure it's probably better now than what it was, say, 10, 20 years ago at least.
And the more we speak about it, is the more we bring awareness so that more people can get diagnosed early. Yeah.
And social media platforms are such a great way of doing that as well. Looking back on it, just that's how you finding me or whatever.
Yeah.
I just thought, because I saw all these comments on the Facebook page about, I can't remember what the subject was, but I thought that's when I needed to comment about try living here in New Zealand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you're right, it is about getting it out there and making people aware. And although I am over here, I do still try to post like stuff on my Facebook page about like World Narcolepsy Day or whatever, and things like that, just to make people aware. And I think it's something that a lot of people have heard of, but don't actually recognise what it is.
What it really looks like or how it really affects people.
So that's me, really.
So I have one more question for you. You could press a red button, and by pressing a red button, you'd get rid of narcolepsy. Would you press it, and why not?
Oh, gosh. This is going to sound very strange in a way, but for me, I perhaps would like to do that with the cataplexy. I would definitely push that red button for that because it is so weird. But Maybe not so much for narcolepsy now that I've lived with it for
so long.
Because for me, that's the normal. And for me also, I wouldn't be doing something that I love now. I'm not saying that I would be stuck in a job that I didn't love doing, but I'm a firm believer sometimes that if something's meant to be, it happens. I just feel what's good for my soul is allowing that creativity to come out, that whole passionate side of what I'm doing, helping people achieve similar things for them. I just get such a buzz out of doing that. And I think maybe if I push that button on narcolepsy, yeah, I wouldn't perhaps maybe be so passionate about,
These things.
yeah. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody, but yeah,
Yeah,
no,
makes
that's
sense to me.
how I feel. Cataplexy, definitely, bam, that'll be gone. But yeah, no, I'll live with my narcolepsy. That's okay.
Oh, Lisa, it was lovely talking to you and hearing
Yeah,
your story. It's really
yeah.
refreshing. Yeah.
And if it helps just one person maybe recognize anything that symptoms if they're going through it, and it's not that whole scariness behind, oh my God, what the heck have I got? And why am I falling on the floor and I can't move and all that sort of stuff, and thinking brain tumor or whatever. Had I been maybe a bit more aware back then, but then, as I say, good old Google, who knows what might have happened if I just hadn't thought, I'm just going to try and self-diagnose because nobody's listening to me.
Yeah. You had to really advocate for yourself.
Absolutely. So cataplexy can go, but I'll stick with my narcolepsy.
That's nice.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate you and wish you a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
At the end, usually say happy napping to everyone.
Yeah.
Happy napping. uh, Narcolepsy Navigators is produced by a team of volunteers working for the Naps for Life CIC, which is a non-profit group dedicated to improving the lives of people with sleep disorders through community action. You can help grow our podcast and join our sleep disorder support group by visiting the website www.napsforlife.com. If you or someone you know has a sleep disorder and would like to share your story on Narcolepsy Navigators, please email us at narcolepsynavigators@gmail.com. You can also support us by donating at the website. Happy napping, everyone.